Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Breezy. I am a self-proclaimed hobbyist and someone who is super passionate about art and technology and kind of how those things intersect. So if that sounds like something that you would be into, I would love it if you hit the subscribe button so we can kind of hang out and talk more about art and tech together. So yeah, I'm really excited because today I'm going to be talking about how I organize all of my creative endeavors with Notion. I created a template and I am offering it for free in the description of this video. So go check that out, download it, follow along, or just check it out and see if it's something you want to use for yourself. So with this template, I have organized it with sewing, crochet, and knitting in mind because that's just what I do. So if that doesn't really fit in with the mediums that you do, feel free to just take inspiration from this video and change things and adapt it to what mediums you like. So yeah, let's go into it. Okay, so there are a couple main problems that I specifically set out to solve when making this template. So the first problem that I needed to solve was that I needed a way to keep track of all of my projects. I really wanted to make a video of oh, what I made in 2023, and I realized that I had no idea what I made in 2023 because I didn't actually keep track of everything. The closest I had was just my iPhone photo history, and even then it was missing a ton of information of how I did things, what material I used, and I was just okay, I can't do this for next year. So I needed something that would keep better track of how I made things and just techniques behind them so I could reference it for later. Another goal that I had with this is just I needed a way to capture the knowledge of techniques and just different things I'm learning. I am not a pro at sewing, crocheting, or knitting, and I still have a ton to learn. So I needed a tool that kind of worked towards that goal of knowledge capture and referencing. So that was something I really kept in mind when I was creating this. And then a third problem and pain point that I needed to solve was keeping track of troubleshooting tips and specific information relating to the tools I use. So a good example of this would be my sewing machine. Just kind of what stitches have I used? How do I service or troubleshoot this specific part without spending a ton of time researching on the internet? Things like that. So my solution was a Notion crafting journal, and I love Notion. I use it a ton, so it just was the perfect tool for me. What is Notion? Notion is kind of a note-taking personal wiki app. It is built on databases. So what does that mean? Everything in Notion is a database. You can link things together, create these data sets that interact with each other. It can be super, super overwhelming, but it is so useful and so beautiful and amazing. So I am really excited to show you today how we can use these principles to keep track of our creative projects. So this video is for experienced Notion users. I don't think you necessarily have to be a huge expert to use a lot of the principles that I am going to talk about, but you definitely need to know how the program works. So if you are a beginner who's never heard of Notion before this video, or maybe has never used it, this video is not for you, but I've linked a bunch of awesome beginner resources in the description, and you should definitely check them out because this is a great tool and it is just perfect for what we're trying to accomplish. So I hope you check them out, and let's kind of get into the journal. All right, so here it is in all its glory. There is a lot going on here, but rest assured, we will go through it. So there's a couple areas that you notice. The center column kind of has two things we're concerned with. Number one is just quick notes. If you're doing something on the fly, it could just be note here, and it's super, super great. Below is a place where I've placed an embed block. And this is cool because you can embed your Pinterest board like I've chosen to do here. It's just for vibes, aesthetics, getting inspired when you open this. Very fun little space. I do a lot of my projects with inspiration from Pinterest, so I just like to keep this here to keep the good vibes going. On the right here is the current works in progress feed. So this is gonna be like an easy access where you can get into the things you're currently working on. I'm working on a V-neck chunky vest and a cursor tapestry right now. So those are my things here. So if I ever need to, like, if I'm actively working on them, need to reference them, they're right here. Over here on the left is just like the main navigation. This is how you're going to be going through the different areas in your journal. So my template is powered by two main databases. So we have all patterns and all projects here. They work together to kind of assemble all of our information. So this is the all patterns database. I usually start all of my projects with a pattern, not always, but usually. I love patterns. I'm always looking at them on the internet, and I just needed a place to organize all of them. I mainly divided this view with patterns I already own and patterns I do not own yet. This way I can kind of like take a look at what is at my disposal. I always try to prioritize things I already own, but let's be honest, that just doesn't always happen. So there's all of these entries, and each entry has information like the name, what type of project it is, the store URL. So if I need to refer someone else to the pattern or find any information about who originally made it, I can reference that here. Here's a checkbox on what I already own and what I don't own. I have a difficulty field here, which a lot of this is like if the pattern has a difficulty recommendation, I'll put that there, or I might like also change it like relative to my own skills, just kind of like what I think it should be. I like to have a general view of like effort, so I like to have that. And then of course like the project type, what kind of medium it is. This is mostly sewing patterns at the moment. And then a lot of patterns come with like a make-along video. So if they have that, I will link that there. So I'm a very visual person. So whenever I'm starting to do a new project, I like to use these gallery views. So here's the owned gallery, pictures of patterns I already own. So I can be like, oh, this is so cool. I can pick this immediately. And then I also have the same for patterns I don't own. That's just really helpful for picking things. So that is the all patterns database, keeping track of all of our sewing, crochet, knitting patterns, and just like where we can find them and if we own them already. So now we are on to the second big database. This is where like the magic happens. This is where we keep track of all of our projects. Throughout this template, we'll have three main views that are going to persist throughout this whole process. That is the works in progress, future projects, and the completed projects. These are all just different views. Right now we're just on all, so you're seeing everything. Let's go to works in progress. So if you click on that, it will just filter by everything I'm currently working on, things I want to do that I haven't started, and stuff that I already have started and completed. So just good to keep track of everything. Each field on this database might be pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go through them. We have like the name of the project, what type it is, what medium, like the status of it, if we're in progress, not started it, but want to, or it's finished. We'll come back to this patterns used property here. I like to have a date completed, just for my own reference. It's nice to know like when I've finished things. I also have specific fields for different types of projects. Like for seam allowance, it's nice to know right at a glance what seam allowance I'm using for something. I have a yarn type field and a fabric type field. Again, way to keep track of those materials. And I also have this last updated entry, which is like I've worked on something recently or I've updated the goal around it. So I just have this for my own reference. So yeah, those are all the fields. Let's go through creating a new project. All right, so now we are back at our dashboard and I have decided I want to start a new project. I am currently working on the cursor tapestry from the 3 pattern pack of like computer themed tapestries from the Etsy shop Lace in the Moon, one of my favorite designers. So I am working on the cursor one and I know I want to start the hourglass one next. So I'm gonna note that down. So I know it's a crochet project, so how I'm going to navigate from my dashboard is I'm not gonna go in the all projects main database. That's kind of overwhelming. I'm gonna go straight to crochet projects. And as you can see, there is this filtered view of all projects where it just has things I'm concerned with when it comes to a crochet project. So like yarn type, what pattern I used, and what product type it is, and what the status is. So I want to do a future project. I don't have any currently in here, so I'm gonna hit new. I'm gonna say hourglass tapestry. It is already a crochet project, we know that, so Notion will auto-populate this field. I know I'm gonna make this from a pattern. So now we're gonna get into this awesome patterns used relation field. So this automatically connects to my all patterns database. So I have a perfect view here of everything, and I know I'm gonna use this 3 pattern bundle. It's coming up, it's right here. You can also search for it. Let's say it didn't come up for it. I can do 3 pattern bundle, there it is. Click on it, and it will just populate right there. So if I need to reference the pattern at all, I can click on that and it will open right in the side, which I think is very useful. So that is referenced there. Yarn type, I have a ton of this Joann's Big Twist yarn that I know I need to get just like rid of because I think it's perfect for tapestries. I don't really like wearing it so much, so I'll put that in there. So what's really cool about Notion is not only does it have these different properties you can assign to entries that you make, there's also content associated with each entry itself. So I'm gonna go hover over the name and hit this open inside a peek button. It will just populate right here. You can see here's all the same properties that we normally assign to our projects. They'll be like fabric type and seam allowance and some other things, but you don't have to assign anything to them because this is a crochet project. And then down here, I have this basic project template. So Notion will automatically populate some like basic fields that I always include. So here under notes, I will always put things like what row I'm on. I don't have a very specific process or like format. I try to keep this really free form so that way I can just open this up on my phone and drop notes when needed. Material list, this is really nice when I know that I need to buy something for a project or I want to gather and use things from my stash. I'll make some very specific notes here. And then what's really great is I can include like a work in progress picture. Because I haven't started this one yet, I'm not going to include a picture, but you can just use the image block function to drop an image here and it will auto-populate on any visual view that you have. So it's just good to have like, you know, work in progress pictures. I like to take a picture after every like session I work on a project and add it here so I can just kind of see my own progression. And I think that's really fun. So that's just kind of like a basic overview on how to add a new project. Let's say I am ready to start working on my hourglass crochet tapestry. So I'm gonna go back into my crochet projects. I'm gonna go back into here and I'm going to open this and set this to in progress, and it like disappears because we are no longer in future projects, we're in works in progress. And what's really cool about that is this now will appear under my current works in progress. So if I'm opening this up on my iPad and I'm working on my bed or something, I could just tap it in here. It pops right open and I don't have to worry about navigating through this side peek here. So the process is gonna be the same for every medium. What's nice is I've kind of included the same view principles with other mediums. So it's if I wanted to start a new knitting project, I'll click in here. This will already be sorted by knitting. If I wanted to start a new sewing project, this will already be sorted by sewing projects with the seam allowance and fabric type fields shown because that's relevant for sewing and maybe not relevant for other things. So I just love this concept. I've been using it. It's working really well for me. So I hope you like it too. So you might have noticed there are some extra things here that don't necessarily relate to the all patterns and all projects databases. And I am very excited about these things because I really think this is where like Notion really shines in terms of making things beyond just like a single purpose of keeping track of our projects. So on the side here, we'll start with like things in the sewing section. So there are some additional pages in here that I find extremely helpful. The first one is my stitch settings page. So I usually start with the type of fabric here that these settings work with, because that's just how it is. You have to adjust your stitch settings for fabric type. I work a lot with lightweight to medium weight cotton and quilting cotton, so this is the only settings I have here really, because I'm still learning. I record what needle type I'm using and the settings for each stitch and any comments if I need to. And then down here, there's the template. So if you want to make a new stitch type, you could just highlight it and hit duplicate and move it out of the template area. And there it is. You can add a new stitch type. So I really like this format. Feel free to adjust it, change it. This is just my stitch settings, so I like it. And then when we go back to the home page, there is another page under that called Machine Manual, where I have actually embedded a PDF of my specific sewing machine's manual. So this is so nice because I just feel like there's so many times where I need to adjust something or like, oh, how do I do this? How do I fix this? And I could just reference it right here in Notion. I love it. It's very easy to do. This is just the same embed block that you would use to embed a Pinterest board, but you add the PDF file of your machine specific make, and it's just appears right here, and it just looks so good. So I find this super useful. I reference it all the time. So then the next kind of like extra thing is actually one of my favorite parts about this, which is the compendium. And yes, I did steal it from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The compendium is a separate database from all projects and patterns that has definitions, terms, techniques, and references that you'd want to look back on later. So this is like that knowledge capture portion. So things that I noticed when I was first starting out with sewing specifically is there's just so many different types of materials and like names and techniques that I have to remember. One of them that I struggled a lot with was the French seam. And so I was able to make an entry here with a description of the technique, what category it falls in. There's like details, materials, notions, techniques, and tools. Feel free to add options or remove them if you don't feel like you need to, but these are the ones that I find personally super helpful. I have a description here of what that is, a link to a YouTube video that I know I've tried that I really like, that makes sense to me, and just kind of like a photo of what that thing is or what it looks like. I plan on eventually writing more into like what it's used for and any sort of nuances with that, but I just haven't found a use for it right now since I just really, really want the reference for the video and everything. So that is all here. So I love rickrack, and I did not know what it was. For the longest time, I would just see it on Pinterest and be like, what is that really cool squiggliness that I see everywhere? And I didn't want to forget it, so I added it here. Added another description. I do have a link here, which is where I would normally put the YouTube video, but I think for details and materials, this would be a really good place to put like your favorite retailer that sells this specific thing. There's a table view built in here and a photo view, and then just a table view filter of techniques. So if you just want to go to your techniques, it's here. I still have to really like build this out, and it's very bare bones, but there's definitely potential to be added onto this and expanded in the future. So I'm very excited about that. All right, so there is just one more extra little bit of functionality that I've included in my template that I want to go through, and that is the Q&A page. So the Q&A page is something that I kind of stole from my time learning to code, where it's a very problems and solutions based approach to things. And I find like there's a lot of similarities with that in crafting. So I used this Q&A process. So I start with questions that I need to answer. The first one was like, how do I cut straight with fabric scissors. That is something I still struggle with. And I have the answer to this kind of written down in a paper notebook that I'm in the process of transferring everything over. So this is just a quick example. I found some really great YouTube videos and tips and tutorials that I just would like probably just drop here. I could even embed the video directly in here so that I have that information straight away right here. One that I already have answered is this problem I was having with my sewing machine when I first got it. So I was just going way too fast, even though I was putting the slightest amount of pressure on that foot pedal, and I didn't know how to adjust it, and I didn't know if there's a way I could adjust it, so I thought, you know, somebody had to have this problem, so I went on Reddit, of course, and I found this really helpful comment, so I copied it and pasted it here, along with the link to the image gallery the user linked so that I can adjust it when I feel like the time is right to adjust it. So these are just kind of like the questions and answers that are just very informal that you want to eventually answer one day. You could make this a database if you really wanted to. You could delete this page and then make a new database page and apply these same principles, but I chose not to just because I really like this long form table of contents, just very informal way of keeping track of things. Yeah, that's just how I like it, but if you want to make a database, go for it. That is totally a valid way of using this space. All right, so thank you so much for going with me on my crafting journal Notion tour. Remember that the template I used is linked in the description and is ready for you to add all of your own things in there. And I'm really excited for you to use it. If you have any suggestions on how I can make it better, or tips on how you've been using it, how you use Notion, how you organize things, maybe you don't use Notion at all, let me know. I want to hear all about it. I am super into organizing and keeping things on track, and it's actually one of my goals for 2024 to keep better history of like the things I'm doing. So let me know. I hope that you have an awesome day, and thanks for watching.